However fat or sausage-like your fingers are, they're not the reason you aren't playing clean chords on the guitar. It's a bold statement, I know, especially from someone who doesn't really have big sausages. I know it's frustrating, so I'm going to prove this to you today by helping you to fret clean chords with your fingers. I've spent the last 20 years teaching adults guitar, and I've never met a single person who had fingers too fat to be able to play the guitar. But I've met a ton who believed that they did, and here's the proof. Here's Mick, who told me he had fat fingers when he first started learning, and here's him playing Dublin in the Rare Old Times.
Ring a rosy, as the night declines, I remember Dublin City in the rare old times.
And here's him playing Working Class Hero with clean chords.
A working class hero is something to me. A working class hero is something to me.
Here's Russell saying he has sausage fingers, and here's him saying he has fat fingers, and then here's him playing Take It to the Limit.
Put me on a highway and show me a sign. Take it to the limit one more time.
So today I'm going to walk you through 10 things you can do to overcome having fat fingers and get playing clean chords with them. So if you don't know me yet, I'm Ian O'Brien, your new friend from the guitar process. I'm here to share with you what I've learned through mentoring over 900 adults between 50 and 80 years old to confidently play and sing complete songs on the guitar. But before I started teaching the guitar, growing up, no one in my family played an instrument or sang. I had zero musical talent. I was told I couldn't sing by my school music teacher, and I wasn't actually allowed to choose music as a subject. So when I started to try to learn the guitar as an adult, it took me over a year before I could play my first song. It was a frustrating struggle, and I felt like a fool. But everything changed for me when I stopped jumping around and butterfly learning and instead started approaching my guitar playing as a focus on 5 simple bottlenecks. The first of which is not being able to play clean chords and then change between them quickly and smoothly. And the way we overcome this in the guitar process is with a proprietary fretting hand protocol. For the full protocol, we use an acronym, CAPS MIST, but for fretting clean chords, we just need the first half. We just need the caps, in which we condition your wrist, your hand, and your fingers for suppleness, flexibility, and the full range of movement that's available to you. We align your hand with the neck of the guitar in terms of the angle of your wrist, the position of your thumb, the shape, curvature, and angles of your fingers, the positioning of your fingertips in relation to the strings and fret wires, and then we dial in to the correct amount of strength to be using to fret chords cleanly. So today I've pulled out of that to share with you 10 separate things from the caps part of the fretting hand protocol for you to try out that are going to help you to play clean chords with fat fingers. The first section is focused just on holding the guitar. So number one is of course how we're holding the guitar, specifically the angle of it. What we're looking for is that we don't have the guitar sloping down at an angle, so it's easier for us to see, easier on the eyes, but much harder in terms of our angle of fretting. That's going to make it much harder to get clean sounding chords. So instead, let's be ourselves more upright and let's have the guitar tucked in close to our body. It doesn't have to be in the center, on the side, so that we are making it easy on the fingers rather than the eyes. Number two, again, is about holding the guitar. So let's check that we're not using a fretting hand to hold up the neck of the guitar, that it's being held in place by the guitar's weight, flat, at right angles on your leg, combined with the weight of your strumming arm relaxed and resting on top. So the fretting hand is completely free to do what it needs to do, which of course is to get the chords clean. And now we're going to look at the actual positioning of the fingers. So number 3, let's first just take a look at the shape of your fingers. The first thing I want you to notice is that they're actually thinner in the section from the nail to the pad of the finger compared to from one side to the other. This side of the finger is thicker than this side. So if we want to get clean chords, we need to be fretting that way. But the second thing is that even very large fingers tend to naturally taper down toward the tip and also kind of conform to this structure. So we definitely want to fret with the narrowest part of our fingers. And here I'm specifically talking about the kind of rotation of our finger. We want to fret our chords and our notes with the nails actually facing upwards, using the narrowest, thinnest cross-section of the fingers, not with the nails facing toward the body of the guitar, which is going to be the chunkiest part of the angle of the finger. We want to be facing upwards, so it's a thinner part of the finger, okay? And then the last joint of each of our fingers needs to be perpendicular, forming a kind of right angle, 90-degree angle to the string. In this pic, you can see the fingers are not at right angles and they're blocking the strings below them. And then you can see here another example. Fingertips are not at right angles again, and that's actually because their fingernails were in the way, stopping them fretting at right angles. So we definitely want to keep our nails trimmed back, actually beyond the top of the tip of the finger, behind it. So when you place onto the neck of the guitar, it's not the nail that's touching it, it's the tip of the finger. So we don't have this sloping kind of stuff going on where we're going to be blocking things underneath. Final joint at right angles to the neck of the guitar. And then number 5 is actually being in the sweet spot. So we want to bring our fingers closer to the fret wire that's closer to us or close to the body of the guitar, which is really, really strongly connected to number 6, which is the strength and pressure that we're using. We want to use the very lightest touch that we can, which is only really going to work when our fingertips are next to the fret wires. If we're further away, we're going to need to use more strength to get clear notes. So here we're not looking to actually push the string down with any real strength so that they touch the wood of the fretboard, which will cause your fingertip to spread out and widen and block strings. We just want to push the string down enough so that it actually touches the fret wire closest to you, and that's going to allow your fingertips to stay the very narrowest that they can, close to the wires, a light touch, nails facing upwards. 7, we don't always have to use the center of our fingertip. We do have some margin available. For example, with an E minor or an E minor 7, we might be blocking the G string below our second finger. You can hear it buzzing like that. Once we've conditioned the hand, we've gained alignment with the guitar, we've applied the positioning stuff above, we can then adjust the placement in terms of the position on the fingertips by moving our finger actually higher up and closer to the strings above. And you'll find in quite a few situations you can actually touch the thicker string above, especially with an E minor, without causing any problems or blocking it, to give you plenty of clearance and enough space to let that string underneath ring clearly. And it's similar with stuff like a G chord. Second finger, really bring it over the edge of the fretboard to clear the one underneath. And then 8, the last thing for positioning is that there are alternative fingerings to fret some chords that might be able to serve you better. So if you've been shown this kind of classic fingers all stacked in a row A chord, which I think is pretty nonsense, it's going to be really tricky to fit all of these fingers in next to the fret wire, especially your first finger, especially if you've got big fingers. They're not going to be in the optimum position. Instead, switch your first finger and your second so that you can have the second and the third fingers in the optimum position next to the fret wire with the lightest touch, and your first one in between. It gives you tons more space with what you can do in terms of getting your fingers in there rather than this kind of stacked up nonsense. And then let's talk about really the guitar itself. So number 9, if you're trying the above and you find that you're getting sore fingers, you find that you're still blocking strings, there are 2 things we can do in respect of the guitar itself. The first is to check the guitar strings are not too high, which is making it harder to fret clear chords, and that's something we call the action, the height of the strings. So take a ruler or a tape measure and measure. What we want to measure is the distance between, at the 12th fret, between the tip of the metal fret wire and its distance between that and the thickest string. So if you have an acoustic guitar and that distance is over 3 millimeters, which is about 1/8 of an inch, or an electric guitar, the gap is about, if it's over 2 millimeters or 5/64 of an inch, you're going to benefit a lot from having the guitar set up by a professional to have a lower action and bring them down under 3 millimeters on an acoustic, 2 millimeters on an electric. It's going to make it much more playable, make all of this stuff much more easy to do. And 10, finally for the guitar, if you've tried all of the above, you've given it a little time for your fingertips to harden, which is going to stop them spreading out as much. So do give it some time. Consider a wider necked guitar. The reason I didn't say this straight away is that if you're blocking strings, it's a technique issue 90% of the time. And if you switch to a guitar with a wider neck prematurely, you're also then going to need to be able to stretch your fingers further across the wider neck to fret chords in general. So it's a bit of a kind of double-edged sword. So we don't want to necessarily solve a problem prematurely by actually creating another one that's going to stick with us long term. But having said that, if you've persisted for a little while, guitar necks come in different sizes, which we measure based on the width of the actual nut. This kind of white part over here used to be made of bones and stuff. Take a look at this diagram. A standard steel-strung acoustic guitar typically has a nut width of about 43 millimeters, which is about 1 11/16 of an inch, sometimes very slightly wider than that. But an extra centimeter can make a really big difference for comfortable fretting with bigger fingers. And there are steel-strung acoustic guitars that are known as wide neck guitars that can have a neck that's a bit bigger, a couple of millimeters, 45 to 47 millimeters, which would be like 1 13/16 of an inch or 1 7/8 of an inch. They're very slightly bigger. It makes a really meaningful difference. And then beyond that, we have classical guitars with the nylon strings, and they typically have an even wider neck. They can be up to 51 millimeter or close to 2 inches in width. But you don't actually necessarily need to stay with a wide necked guitar. Once you learn to fret accurately on it, you'll be in a good position to then be able to fret even more accurately on a standard neck-sized guitar. And that's exactly what my student Russell did. Russell had a journey over the first year of learning to play where we adjusted the size of the nut and the size of the fretboard with different guitars. So December 2022, he purchased a fairly cheap nylon strung classical to practice with on the fretboard because it's wider, giving more room for his sausage fingers. So that one was about 51 millimeters, close to 2 inches. And then within a month later, January 2023, Russell went for a Martin SC13E, a neck with about 44.5 millimeter, which is about 1.75 inch, a wide-necked steel-strung guitar, and got on comfortable with that. He was ready to kind of be more accurate and get used to slightly narrower than the classical. And then when it came to July 2023, he went for a Faith Blood Moon Venus, which had a standard nut width of just 43 millimeters or 1 and 11/16 of an inch. So back down to the actual really standard steel string acoustic guitar, not a wider fretboard. And from there, he was comfortable with it. And by December 2023, Russell had learned to play quite a few songs, but singing and playing the Eagles with a capo on the 4th fret, fitting his fingers comfortably into those fret wires.
I was thinking about a woman who might love me, but I never knew. You know, I've always been a dreamer.
So there are options as you progress while we're applying the fretting hand protocol at each level. We gradually acclimatise to thinner guitar necks when learning to play. And so far we've only really touched on the surface of the fretting hand protocol and the caps missed. There we have it. If you're over 50 years old and you really want to finally make progress with your guitar playing, to find out exactly how I'm teaching my students to play and sing complete, recognizable songs confidently, you can click the link below. And if this video resonates with you, go ahead, click like, click subscribe, and you're really gonna love this one.